Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. This is the Belizean Affairs Show number 421. 421. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'll be your host and chairman for tonight. Uh, Being Friday, we normally would have been doing a constitutional program in addition to some legal, case law, and other legal related matters, as well as economics and other functions. But for tonight, we have a special program being the Good Friday night, and we want to combine a presentation for tonight dealing with religion, politics, economics, budget, social welfare, and so on and so forth. I don't know how much of it we're going to get to cover because we have 90 minutes to do our program, and I'll just do the best I can for tonight. Uh, we agreed with the other host that they would take off the Friday night and probably Monday because of the special um, religious holidays. And I agreed that I wanted to do a special presentation for tonight, and therefore that's what I'm embarking on. Nevertheless, I'll still use the same format as we normally use during our regular programming, which is to say, I'll bow my head in a minute, say a short prayer, and then read a short scripture from the Bible. As I said, tonight program will also include biblical issues or religious related issues. So you'll see me or hear me going all over the place, but the intention is to try and show how the lives that we live has to do with all these different issues that I pointed out earlier. There's no way that we can be religious and not be political, or we can be political and not be religious. There's no way we can deal with budgetary issues and not deal with the affairs of state and or issues that relates to the well-being and societal issues as well. That being said, I won't go into all the rest of details right now. I'll just proceed as the program time is already running. I'll proceed to say the prayer. I'll bow my head. Divine loving Father, once again we come before thy presence. We ask that thou would accept our humble expression of gratitude and thankfulness to thee, first and foremost, for the privilege of life that thou hast granted us, and secondly, for the opportunity to still be alive among our family members, friends, and loved ones. We pray that thou mayest bless our children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, and that thou would bless our other significant ones, including our brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, aunts, and our extended friends as well, like we said. Please continue to abide with us. Please continue to guide and protect us. Please continue to look after us, the rest of our hearts, our desires, even our most secret thoughts. We pray that thou may let the words of our mouth and the meditation of our mind and the contriteness of our heart be acceptable before thy divine presence. We ask thee for rest these mercies in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so we're going to move right along, and I'm going to take a scripture reading for tonight, and I'm going to look for something in the New Testament, which is the focus of the purpose for which you're going to hear me speak about different types of cross, figuratively as well as literally. And so, let's see, yeah, let's way back. Okay, I want to go forward here. Not forward. What are we looking at here? Okay. Let me see what chapter. This was chapter 16. Okay, I'll read a couple of verses from Matthew chapter 16, and it goes as follows, starting at, let me see, I think I need to go to the other verse above it, just for context. Okay, we got it. 16. Okay, so it's Matthew chapter 16, and I'm starting at verse. Okay, Matthew chapter 16. I don't have my headpiece on. I'm proceeding with the program, and I'm sorry about that. I'm anxious to get these bits and pieces taken care of and done correctly, and I was missing out the most important part, which is to allow people to hear the program properly. I do need to take another minute to connect up another part of the program, but I'll do that after I do the reading. And I'm going to read, like I said, Matthew chapter 16, starting at verse 13. It says, when Jesus came into the coast of Caesars, when Jesus came into the coast of Caesars, Sarah, Philip, he asked his disciples, saying, just give me a second to turn this page here, saying, when do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And verse 14 goes on to say, and they said, some say that thou art John the Baptist, some say Eliah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. Verse 15 goes on to say, he said unto them, but whom say ye that I am? That's a question. And Simon Peter answered and said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said unto him, blessed art thou, Simon, Bar-Jonah, O son of Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And that's what we're reading for tonight. Uh, as I indicated earlier, tonight's program is not going to be a constitutional program as we normally would do, but it's going to be a special program in which I'm going to attempt to combine and hopefully show how our daily lives incorporate all these various things that I mentioned earlier, and probably some more as I go along. But as regards to the political part, which I want to start off with, a part of it, by the way, and that oh, I asked to be given the opportunity to just launch the other part of our program on the other platform, and I'll take that opportunity right now. Just probably a few minutes. Let me see. Come on. Okay, live. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Got that. One more. Edit. And then I'm gonna go here and one, two. Just bear me a second, please. So, mm, 421. Okay. And then I'll just leave the rest of that and catch up with that afterwards. Let's see, save. Okay. Sorry about that little disturbance. Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry about that little disturb. Well, not I wouldn't call it a disturbance, really. It's just a little extra work that I have to do. I got to launch the program first live as I had completed, and then after having the program live, then I had to enter it on the a few other platforms. But I won't do all of them right now because I don't have the flexibility as compared to when we have other members of the panel on. I can afford that opportunity when they are talking, then I'm doing that in the background. But now that I'm doing it by myself, I have to ask you, the general public, to please bear with me. So I end up with a little bit of airtime that is not properly used, but in order to afford the other people, for them to be able to catch up on what's going on in the program. Having done some of that, I'll leave the rest for some time after the program, and I'll do that as house cleaning so that they can get it maybe a little later on. Anyhow, uh, to start off the program for tonight, in terms of the material that I had presented, I'll just go to a specific section. Let's see if I can find that. Okay, I got it. Okay, as I said, tonight program is going to be dealing with governance affairs, and in dealing with this highlighted title as governance affairs, we're going to be speaking about politics, as I indicated earlier. We're going to be speaking about religion, as I also indicated earlier. We're going to speak about economics in regards to the budget that was presented recently and some issues that needs to be attended to in regards to how the budget addresses the social welfare issues of the country and its shortcoming. Hopefully, the Prime Minister may find uh, some need to go back and revisit that budget and clean it up a little bit and maybe squeeze a few extra $1 million to enhance some of the public welfare related issues. Because the budget ought to be done not with the necessary major expenditures as has been done in the past as being the priority, but that the budget must look at the needs of the society as a whole, as well as how the government appropriate its funds and spend those funds. We have had situations in the past where the government end up spending hundreds of millions of dollars that could have gone to taking care of the budgetary um, requirements or needs, and those hundreds of millions of dollars was not available while the people were made more impoverished. Nevertheless, besides the budget issues that we're going to speak about, I want to speak to some political issues because Jesus said, "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's," right? He also told the thief on the cross, "Today I make this promise to you that you will be with me in heaven." I hope that's how most people understand it to be, because there is this misnomer or misinterpretation or guided effort or a conclusion by some people to say that while Jesus was on the cross, he was telling the other person on the other cross, the thief, that on that particular day that he was making that promise, that man would have been in heaven with Jesus. And for those who have that as a religious perspective, I would invite them to go and read again the Bible, specifically as regards to those statements that were made, and they will see that during the time when that promise was made, the English language was not yet in existence. So if they read it in English or in Spanish or any other modern languages, they will realize that in order to fully understand contextually what was being promised on the cross by Jesus to that gentleman, the comma would have been placed in a different location than some of these translations of the Bible have it. That is to say, after Jesus said, "Today, comma, I promise you that you will be with me in heaven." When read correctly, would definitely give a different interpretation than to say that because on that particular day he was making that promise, that he was intending and or attempting to convey the impression that he, Jesus Christ, was making that promise to that gentleman, telling him that on that very same day he would have been in heaven with Jesus. Because we all know what we are celebrating today as being Good Friday is the day when he died. So he was in the tomb for 3 days. Friday, Saturday, and he resurrected on Sunday. So no way could Jesus have been in his tomb for those 3 days and still be with that gentleman in heaven already at that time, and that his promise to that gentleman, as perceived and taught and teach by some individuals or organizations, that Jesus was actually lying because he did not go to heaven on that day. For 3 long days, he was in his tomb. And I could be presumptuous to try and make fun out of what some of these people are teaching, but I wouldn't even go there. Other than to say, the English language was not in use at the time, and what we have are translations of other documents that contemporaneously people who were living at that time was allowed or had the privilege to create those documents and to tell the story. But the story must not be told in such a way as for it to appear to be incorrect or untruthful. The story of Jesus dying on the cross and making that promise to that gentleman is about the same promise that was made before Jesus died by God from the Garden of Eden all the way through, according to the scriptures, and after Jesus died until now. There are many people that are waiting for the second coming of Christ, which is to say he came the first time to die for our sins, as was promised in the Garden of Eden, that the child of the woman would have smashed the head of the serpent, which in that instance the serpent was being referred to as Lucifer. He wasn't ugly, he wasn't disfigured, as some people paint him to be, that the devil is so evil that he's ugly. And that's why a lot of people get caught, believing that some of the evil things that they do or that other people encourage them to do doesn't represent the evil of the devil. Why? Because the people that are encouraging them to do the wrong or the evil come to them, you know, personifying, you know, elites, smart, or knowledgeable people. And that's how they get hoodwinked. The devil came to Christ himself before Christ was put on the cross. Came to him up on a hill to try and deceive Christ, and was asking Christ to bow down and worship him, the devil, and he will give them all those things that they were looking at across the horizons, all the wonders of the earthly riches. But in fact, the devil forget to remember that it was Christ that actually allowed the devil to come about in its original state as Lucifer, the greatest angel in heaven. But of course, that's a long sermon for clarification purpose in regards to biblical issues. And for tonight's program with 90 minutes and the amount of things that I want to touch on, I can't get into all those bits and pieces, right? I could only glaze over them superficially. So it is incorrect for people to give the impression that Christ made that promise to the gentleman on the cross as to appear to say that on that same day that he was making that promise, that he was going to take the gentleman to heaven with him on that same day. When in fact, he was in the tomb for 3 days after being killed. And as somebody, myself, who studies linguistics, origin of languages, and the etymology of the English language in particular, I am able to decipher those things and be able to recognize where the failures of those concepts come about. Some people, you can't fault them because what they're doing is just reading what they're seeing in the Bible, and they're taking just about any translation of the Bible and any variations of the Bible, because you have literally hundreds and hundreds of different translations and different variations. Okay? You have the English version, you have the Revised English version, you have the King James English version, you have the, literally hundreds and hundreds of different variations. And they all have the idea or the intent to maximize their interpretation of the scripture as per their perspective or their vantage point. And they add this, they take that, they move this, they change that, and and they create what is called dogmas, the principles on which their religious faith or their religious organization is structured. And every one of them, every one of the religious entities, I'm talking about the Christian entities now, okay, in particular. I'm not going into the Muslims and Buddhists and Hindu and all the other stuff. They all have their right to exist. Some of them are older than Christianity, by the way. So, we can't say, well, because Christianity came after them, that Christianity is not viable, or that because Christianity is what we on this Western Hemisphere are more inclined to believe or ascribe to, that we are going to dispense with and or throw away all the previous religious or spiritual organizations. Because some of those people might be saved, while some of us who pretend to be Christians and not being as good a Christian as we ought to be and could be, may end up standing on the outside looking in. While some of those other people in other religions, under their own basis of whatever they're ignorant about, God being the judge on the throne, he will decide who he forgive and for what reasons, and he will make that determination as the judge, because neither I or you or anybody else as a human being have the privilege or the rights or the authority to sit on God's throne to do God's job for him. That's basically blasphemous. So when we are here on this face of the earth, chiding each other and being cantankerous with each other and trying to pretend that we are any better than each other, you know, we're stepping out of line. Because it is not for us to sit on God's throne and pass any judgment. That is for God to do. Um, I would like to get into a bit of the political aspect of the discussion for tonight. Well, it's not going to be a real discussion per se because I'm not going to have anybody retorting back to me or interacting with me in a discourse. So it's basically just a presentation from my vantage point. As a senior Bible scholar myself, being certified as an expert in biblical matters, specifically as regards to Daniel and Revelation and other matters, I'm taking the opportunity to do tonight's program. But like I said, it's going to be about religious issues, biblical issues. It's going to be about political issues. It's going to be about governance affairs issues. It's going to be about budgetary issues. It's going to be about, societal ills and on and on and on. Time is running, so I need to get back to where I'm going to start. I'm going to start by reading an article which I intend to make some commentary on. And I'm using this particular article because it's germane to some of what I'm hoping to present tonight. This article was written by, it was posted by me, okay? Or I should say, not just posted, but reposted, because it's somebody else's article. So I just reposted it a few times at different locations on the internet. And the originator of the article is Miss Tracy Tager Panton, about 3 days ago. She titled it Another Teachable Moment. And after I read the whole thing, I thought it should have been presented or allowed for a wider presentation, and that I would do the best I can to afford that additional wider presentation as much as I could. In other words, I'll contribute my little part to spread it as wide as possible and give it its due consideration. Not only just republishing it or reposting it, but that I would have taken tonight and add it to part of my programming for tonight. So again, I say, without having gotten her permission, I had intended to get in touch with her and then ask her forbearance or her consent for me to use the material. But she actually put it out there for everybody to make use of or to repost or share. And therefore, not having taken the privilege before on a timely basis to have given her at least notice of what I was intending to do with her article, I'm now begging for a mea culpa in public here before I present the material. So I go on to read then, as well, tonight on Fridays, most of the people that listen to our program would realize and remember that we do what we call teachable moments in regards to the Constitution and other issues. And I noticed that Ms. Tager also presented the title of her article as being Another Teachable Moment. I do not feel compelled, she said, to explain myself on every matter. I am who I am because of how I was raised by my parents. Of course, I knew her dad. I didn't. I didn't knew her mom as much, but I knew her dad because of you know I was steep in politics at the time when when he was around in Belize in the earlier days. But let me proceed. Let me just move on. I don't want to. I know I have a long evening, a lot of stuff that I want to cover, and therefore I'll try my best, like I said, you know, to cover it. But every once in a while, as per my bad habit, I like to add commentary to things that I read. In other words, I like to contextualize it for further clarification or comprehension purposes. When in some instances, instead of helping the process, I belabor the process to the point that some people fall asleep. So I hope I'm not going to end up doing that in tonight's program. But I'm moving on. Yes, Mistake went on to say, I do not feel compelled to explain myself on every matter. I am who I am because of how I was raised by my parents, who were called to service. Her dad, Mr. Leroy, and Miss Andrea Tager. My values are the my values are therefore not negotiable. She went on to say, let me be clear, outlining the direct contributions received by the people of Albert from the public purse is not capitulation. Of course it's not. Because whatever the Albert division receives from the public purse is public funds. It comes from the treasury. And not just the Albert, but all division should get just about as equal as each other and should have, as according to the Constitution, as equal a number of registered voters in their division, which is another issue that we have been fighting the government over. When took the matter to, there were three different cases that were submitted. One of them reached all the way past the Supreme Court, past the appellate court, local Belizean appellate court, and all the way to the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Justice, which was the final jurisdiction of our court and legal system. Let me continue what Ms. Tager was saying, okay? Let me be clear. Outlining the direct contributions, so in other words, pointing out in her own way the direct contributions that is being received by the people of the Albert from the public purse is not capitulation. Of course, it's not, like I said earlier. It is accountability. It is a duty, an obligation I have to place on public. More importantly, it serves as public acknowledgement of the hard-working Belizeans whose taxes fund these programs, or teachers, or laborers, or small farmers, or business owners, or service industry. Let me see, I went too far. Or service industry professional, or healthcare providers, or security personnel, or public officers, or young and not so young entrepreneurs. It is their sacrifice that supports the most vulnerable among us who are being pushed to the margins of poverty daily. She went on to clarify an issue that appeared to have become a talking point by some people by saying, these allocations, referring to some allocations that people are commenting about, right? These allocations are not a gift from any government. This is the people's money in Albert. The monthly allocations are as follows. And I'm going to acknowledge here that she's doing something that most of the other politicians them in the country are not doing. Okay? They're not saying how much they get and where the money goes. Other than the fact that people know that they get some money and that something is being done with the money. But in most instances, some of the money that they get does not go to the purpose for which it is allocated for. But let me not get into all of that. Let me just stick with her presentation for right now. I'll have my chance to overlay my comments. Okay, so she pointed out that she gets 10,000 from the CDF, Consolidated Funds of the. She gets another 5,000 for food assistance to the people in the Albert Division. She gets 4,000 community outreach, and that is a total of $19,000 per month. None of the other politicians so far has even given her that much of a breakdown, much as any details or any receipts that are being logged or kept for records purposes. She went on to say, in a constituency of just under 3,000 registered voters, that number of 19,000 total equates to about $6.33 per person per month. Let that sink in. How can you have a constituency that gets $6.33 per individual or per constituency to do services to those individuals or render services to those individuals? Of course, some of them don't need very much services, but with a population in our country of 60% poverty rate, you can see that a lot of people need help. We have one government minister who was complaining that maybe he might not run for politics in his next term because he's getting tired and getting fed up. Because on one particular day, about 75 people showed up at his office. Of course, all 75 must have been looking for some kind of help in various ways. But that he feels that that's too much for him. We have a population of 68% poverty. And you don't expect for people to come to you to ask for assistance? Or that when they come and ask you for assistance, you have to feel like you're being sat upon? All you got to do is ask the government to allocate more funds for those purposes, increase those numbers. The budget is there, and they keep coming back to get supplemental for the budget, almost on a monthly basis. So do the work of the people, provide the services that the people need, allocate the funds for the budget in such a way that the priority and the needs of the most needy people at least can be afforded. That $7 million that they took and bought that sewage pond to go and put a hospital. Do you know how far that $7 million could have gone? Imagine. Ms. Yeager is saying that she's getting $19,000. We only have 31 divisions in the country, or 31 parliamentarians in terms of the different districts that they get elected from. You imagine if she was getting, as one of the parliamentarians, she's getting 19,000. And other parliamentarians are getting, okay, her part of that 19,000 is 10,000 from the CDF. And there are other people who are getting, as the Prime Minister had indicated, some are getting 15,000, some are getting 20,000, and others are getting 25,000. And I'm sure that besides that, They're also getting additional money. Those who become ministers, from their portfolio, they can do favors for different people in their community, or they can trade favors with other ministers for other ministers to do service to their community by them giving other ministers services out of their community. There are a lot of different ways how governance function, and good governance should include not complaining about the needs that the people come and ask for help on, but finding the way to try and provide those help instead of appropriating the funds and misallocating it. That one instance that I commented on earlier for the $7 million for the sewage span, when they already had the land at the hospital, I mean at the University of Belize, to put that hospital on, which is where they had proposed to do it. Why go and spend another $7 million to buy something that they didn't need, they don't want, and will take a lot of extra more millions of dollars to do remediation for it to be made healthy enough to use for occupancy, and especially in the case of the occupancy of a tertiary hospital. You cannot have a tertiary hospital being built in a sewage span itself, so you have to do remediation. But you shouldn't have to have done that because the land was already available at the university for free. So imagine if the government was doing the right thing. Out of that $7 million, do you understand or figure out how many tens of thousands of times they could have increased these people's budget? Each of those ministers, the 31 ministers, could have gotten at least, $200,000-$300,000 extra to service their community. People are in dire needs. 68% poverty, and some people go to bed at night without having eaten for the whole day, or they wake up and don't know where the next meal is going to come from during the course of the other day. That's not proper governance. That's not good governance. While you guys are living large off of the dime that you collect from the people, you pressure extra tax out of the community, and then you're giving concessions of hundreds of millions of dollars to various big entrepreneurs who give you a little kickback on the side, and you give them or award them a $20 or $25, 20 or 25 years concession that they can be making money and paying no taxes. And you go and hustle the money that you need to finance the government out of the people that don't even have it. You go where the money is. Instead of giving 25 years concession, you can give 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or even 20 years. But you won't give 25 years concession to people who are making millions of dollars so that they don't have to pay into the government to service the government affairs. I'll come back to these numbers because, I just want to finish up the lady's presentation. And like I said, I'll hopefully have some chance. If not tonight, if my time runs out, maybe then I could come back on Monday and continue my rant. So just let me try and do justice to her presentation first. She went on to say, Miss Fanton went on to say in her presentation, at a time when Belizeans are grappling with rising inflation, increased fuel price, higher electricity and water rates, escalating property taxes, increasing transportation cost, rent expenses, and trade license fees expenses, and increase. This amount is wholly inadequate to meet the pressures that come down to bear on the people who are elected as members of Congress or as members of Parliament, and which is then why one of the ministers himself, as I stipulated earlier, had complained. He thought the people are asking for too much, more than he. Of course, if he was getting the same like Miss Panton, right? He would have been hollering blue hell already, long before now. Because how would he service those people with what else? Yeah, let me see, with $6.33 each? You think he can help anybody with only $6.33? Of course, he had $50 million given to him by the Prime Minister for him to do other community services. But nobody speaks about that. He's complaining, and he have large amount of funds available to him to do community work. He has millions. Ms. Panton have, like she's saying here, 10,000 and 5,000 and 4,000, 19,000 total. And she's saying, of course, it's inadequate, for the amount of people in her division. So the government need to reapportion the budget to meet the critical issues and needs of the society. You can have some of the cities raising their budget so that the employees of the city can get twice, or some of the big wigs in the mayor's office can get their salary raised to almost twice as much, while impoverishing the society. Ms. Panton went on to say, so when some choose to misguide or mislead or misinform, we have a duty to correct the record, which is what she's attempting to do by putting out this information and the numbers that relates to the particular issue. Because being in politics is a hard thing, especially if you're in the opposition, because you don't have a ministry to get more favors covered to your constituents. Okay? And as an opposition, you're given when the government is giving out money like this to the different parliamentarians, they don't all get the same amount. In Ms. Panton's case, she's the leader of the opposition, man, and she's getting the least of all of them. The Prime Minister was complaining because he said, okay, well, he had allocated 25,000 for himself, while he had given Ms. Panton 10, and some of the other opposition 10, and his colleagues, they got 20 and 25. Those amounts of monies, whether it be 10, 15, 20, or 25, it's too little. And the Prime Minister confessed to that much by saying that he needed to get more than the 25 that he was getting. Why? Because he has to visit so much people, or so many people come and ask for favors. And therefore, that's why he ended up getting a lot more. As far as I could tell, the Prime Minister have available to him over $1 billion for slush fund. So when he's talking about or complaining about the 25,000 that he gets, he's misleading. He's not being forthright and upfront and honest with the public. The other ministers, they have to themselves that I could calculate back the numbers based on the budget, and some of what I see some of them do. Each of them have at least between $250,000 to $500,000, depending on what ministry. And the backbenchers who don't have a ministry because they're not ministers don't have access to that kind of funds. Bunch of rascals. It makes me mad, man. But anyhow, Ms. Panton went on to say in her essay, okay, and let me try and read some more of it. I'm probably running out of time. Anyhow, she said, "We will speak truth. We will stand firm. We will always remind Belizeans that the resources allocated to the Albert and to every constituent, for that matter, belongs to the people, not the government, not to the politicians, the people. Public declarations are not, as she had done, she explained what was happening, and her public declaration in this instance, she's saying, are not about gratitude to power. That is because the Prime Minister gives them a little chance for them to do work in their division. That does mean because she, in one instance, I recall, she had said thanks for something that one of the other ministers had done. They're doing it with the public money. But she was still gracious enough to at least tell them thanks for having done it. You had some of the hardcore pups them and others, jokers, who got up and said she shouldn't be saying thanks to him because it's public money. We all acknowledge and recognize it's public money, but the woman was at least gracious enough to at least say thanks on behalf of her constituents. What is so wrong with that? Man. Public declarations are not about gratitude to power. It is about respect for the people on whose shoulders carry the burden of funding the system and providing much needed relief for those who struggle on a daily basis, among those 68% in poverty. She went on to say there's two more paragraphs that I need to read, so then I could start doing my own ranting, okay? Because I hope I don't forget what I want to rant about or what I want to say by the time I get to doing the reading. But I need to do justice to what she had presented. And so let me just continue on that vein. She went on to say, there will always be those who love or hate you. One has no control over that. Or those who listen but do not truly hear. Those who read but lack the ability to comprehend, apparently. Those who are so preoccupied with their own self importance and relevance that they are aloof. The plight of those who are less fortunate. And in her last paragraph, she says, the question that lingers for me is this: when does saying thank you, as she did, to those on whom we depend, on, because such a public affront to those who pride themselves in being mischief makers. Love and gratitude, my friends, are the currency of the heart. I rest my case, she said. And for having said what I just read just now, because she's a woman and the first woman head of the opposition, she was taken to task and is being flagellated by a bunch of knuckleheads who doesn't carry the burden that she carry. And they are disappointed with the present government. They wish to change the government, but somebody as herself, they're not willing to give her, at least accede to her, the privilege of explaining her own vantage point or perspective. Uh, anyhow, let me just, I put an emoji there thanking her for having written the stuff. And then I want to get into my part of let me close this off. Oh, I had said that I wanted to go back to some of the numbers she had Let me get back there again. Give me a second. Okay, I found it. Yeah. Okay. Let me get back to some of these numbers because oops. Uh-oh. Hmm. Okay. Um. Okay. I did address the point in passing earlier, where Ms. Panton was saying that she only received $10,000 from the CDF and $5,000 for food assistance and $4,000 for community outreach. A lot of these people, they go to Ms. Panton and other area representatives and they ask them for, because like I said, with 68% poverty, a lot of people don't have work. There's not any jobs available. As much as some of these people want to work, and some of them can't work because they have no skills, and others can't work because they don't have the means to afford themselves the opportunity to, you know, go to a job site and work on empty belly until they can get pay so they can start sustain themselves or their family members. In Belize, payday is every 15th of the month and ending of the month. There are some lucky workers who work and get paid on a weekly basis. There are some others who are lucky enough to find what you call day work, or that they get paid on a daily basis. But with an economy like the one that Belize has, it is difficult. And the government puts aside for pantry and poverty alleviation programs about $3 to $4 million out of the budget of 1.977, I think, or something like that. But it's almost $2 billion. Very sure, very close to $2 billion, just for the want of a few more $100, which is an increase of the budget far beyond what they did last year. And during the course of this year, during this budget um, consummation, they're going to come back to the House as they have done on every month since they got into office to come and ask for supplementals and or to go and get additional loans to finance additional projects. They don't want to go to the people who are doing business and who are making the millions of dollars and collect their taxes that is due. They're not even collecting the amount of taxes that they're supposed to be collecting from some of the merchants that are collecting the GST on behalf of the government from the public and not turning all of it into the government coffers. But they want to raise the gas price, and every time the gas price raises, it creates an inflationary effect. That is, that everything else gets raised, not only to recover the extra price for the gas, but to collect additional fees or to collect additional profits. And people's salary are not being, for those who have a job at least, their salary doesn't increase at the rate of inflation, but the rate that these people are increasing the cost of living. As I said earlier, $10,000 or $19,000 total is not enough. While the government is squandering millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, just in order to get a little kickback to finance their political agendas, or in some instances, for their own personal hustles. And some of you may say, well, why is it that I'm intimating that kind of thought process and verbalizing it in public. It's because I know what the hell I'm talking about. That's why. And none of them can come to me and tell me no stupidness about um um uh, libeling them or maligning them. What they are doing is worse than what I'm complaining about. So I don't want to hear no excuses or hear nobody come to me trying to pretend that, well, I need to tone it down or I need to give these guys. No, we have given them enough breaks. Somebody got to holler for accountability. Even if we're not getting it, we need to persist in hollering for it. And if that's the only thing that I could do or the least that I can do, I'll keep on doing it. Um, I spoke about the budget, economics. The oh no, I don't want to copy. Just talking about trying to copy it. I don't want to copy it. A little politics was there just now, and I want to get into a little bit of the this thing with the bus drivers. Then, okay. So please bear me. Um, I want to read a little article here, which was done by Plus TV, and it was done about 3 days ago, and they were speaking about the bus operators say GOB, which is the government of Belize, should help them, despite not wanting to join national bus company. When this national bus company was proposed, I went out on a limb and made some declarations. Okay, and I still feel like I'm out on that limb, holding that declaration up for the passers-by to see how onerous our government is with its attempt to try and capture our local transportation system into a national bus service system where the individuals that used to own their own companies were invited to consolidate all those services under the government control. They wanted new buses, or they wanted better buses, they wanted better services, and so they decided to make some laws to pressure the bus owners then into complying with those laws in order to so-called justifiably kick them out of business because they would not be able to economically afford what was being foisted on them. So for all intents and purposes, from the get-go, it was onerous. They were supposed to be getting some buses, and instead of giving those buses to the operators or crediting them to the operators, they decided to do something on their own and compete with the operators with public funds. And those who join with them would get assistance, and those who don't join them will have to survive on their own, which is wrong. The Constitution says that the assets of governance and the government are to be distributed equally among all potential employees or stakeholders of the patrimony so that they can have a fair enough chance at making a living. And it also said you're not supposed to discriminate. In other words, you just can't help some and don't help the others. Or you just can't take some and decide that you're going to make a national bus company and disregards the rights and the interests of the other people who are currently running their bus company, and you will step on their neck and make them irrelevant or kick them out of business or force them out of business. So you could turn around and take the very same national bus company and sell it to some other private entity in the future. Because that's what the agenda was, as I explained before, when it was first proposed. And as the days and the weeks and the months and the years are going by, it is manifestly clear that that was the original intent, and they were just trying to work the bits and pieces into getting where they want to go. Let me read what this gentleman here has stipulated from Plus TV. It says, over the last year, the Ministry of Transportation has been trying to include all of the Belize bus operators to sign on the National Bus Company's NBC launch either this year. No. There was a period, there was a stop there. Okay, let me read that. I didn't read that correctly or appropriately. Let me redo it. Over the last year, the Ministry of Transportation has been trying to include all of the Belize bus operators to sign on to the National Bus Company. The NBC, which is the same as National Bus Company, launched earlier this year with approximately half of the country's independent operators signing on. According to the Minister of Transportation or of Transport, the bus operating under the NBC will not be subjected to fare increases due to the companies being protected by the government. According to the independent operators who decide not to be a part of the NBC or the National Bus Company, they deserve the same treatment as they are offering a service to the people of Belize, and the president of the BBA says that no relief is provided within the company in the coming days. Operators will be forced to park their buses. So there you go, exactly as I stipulated it originally. This was just a turkey dance, basically, to get these people to a position or a situation where they will not be able to afford to run their buses. Basically, it's a cute way of trying to kick them out of the bus industry. We had a situation where Novelos borrowed $38 million from a government institution to enhance their company, and instead the money disappeared and they went under, and that money never got paid back to the government. We have a situation where the Zabanese, the present minister responsible for transportation, they had their own bus company, Z-Line, and it went under. And we have many other bus companies that started and stopped, or started and went under, or some of them started and they're still going. We had Batibus, for example, right? Big company, went under. But we have literally hundreds of different operators, and they're all struggling to try and survive. So now the government came up with this grand scheme about making the bus system into a national system. When the price of gas goes up or fuel goes up, whether it's gas or diesel or whatever, these people have to raise their prices to the public because the price of their fuel went up. The price of their parts goes up to hundreds of parts that you have to have in order to repair your buses or maintain or keep your buses on, running. So these guys have expenses, and when their expense go up in terms of the material, their labor cost goes up too. So they got to get a raise. Now the government is saying that they will not allow these people to get a raise, the independent bus drivers getting any help, while the government is helping the national bus company. That's illegal, unlawful, and unconstitutional. If you're going to help some, you have to help others. You cannot discriminate. You're using public funds. Anyhow, there's a lot more that's going there about that bus stuff. Okay, the runs that the bus they used to have, it's all being changed up now, so that the ones that are working along with the government, they get the preferred routes and timing of the day, so that they can stay viable, while the other ones are given runs on routes that are not viable, economically feasible for them to be able to survive. So in different ways, they are pressuring them for them to get out the system, so that the preferred individuals are going to end up inheriting those runs that the people can't maintain or can't keep up. And then they are disqualifying some of them by on the basis of the quality of the buses that they have, and a whole lot of basically what's going on is that anything that makes a little money, there are some individuals in the government that wants their finger in it, so that they can stir the pot and profit from it. And the government is so onerous as to recognize that to be the reality and pretend that, well, so what? We are dealing with a bunch of scofflaws and a bunch of scoundrels. Anyhow, let me go back to. I'm doing part of my ranting. I'm really into the ranting part. I did part of the religious thing in the earlier part of the show. I did part of the political thing. I did part of the economic thing and the budget thing. So I'm clocking along. I think I'm all right with time. What I want to talk about right now is, I think most of these members of parliament, from what I know and what I have in my profiles, their personal profiles, most of them will be ending up over this holiday going to church. Okay? They will go to church and they will pray and elevate Jesus because of the occasion, but they can't find it in their heart to do the job that Jesus asked us to do. That is, be kind to ourselves and our friends and family. Help each other. Do good one to another. Treat each other the way you'd like for others to treat you. That's not how our government ministers, prime minister, and other power players in the system are operating. They don't give a hoot about anybody else, so long as they're racking in the money. The prime minister is getting money from his salary. He's getting money from his all his little benefits and perks that he's entitled to as a prime minister, and he's getting additional benefits that he's not entitled to. That just by virtue of his position, he's able to receive, directly and indirectly. That goes for the ministers them as well, who have portfolios. And it goes for some of the non-ministers, or say ministers of state in some ministries under those ministries' portfolio. That's how the system, help the political. Um, that's how the system help the political entities or individuals who run the system. As we say, to the winner or the victor goes the spoils. But it shouldn't be so onerous to the point where they think that only they're supposed to benefit from the spoils, because the Constitution spells it out and says, I think it's in paragraph B of the preamble, that the resources of the country should be made available to anyone in the country, in terms of everyone being given a fair chance or an opportunity to make a living and to survive. It doesn't say that those who are the ministers or those who are elected officials and their friends, families, and cronies are the only ones that's supposed to benefit from this economic system of the country. But that's how these guys run the system. Me, myself, and I, my family, my friends, and my cronies. And if you're not part of my circle, tough luck. I'm sure that these gentlemen, when they go to church over this Easter holiday, should visit their own minds, think seriously about whether they are just going to church to have other people see them attending services and therefore having goodwill towards them, or are they serious about what Jesus is asking them to do? That is that stop mistreat the people, and they are the one that give you the election, give you the chance to become ministers and elected officials. Stop relating to them with contempt, disdain. I don't know that I can say that any of our ministers provide any funds out of their own pocket, from their own personal assets, to help anyone. Most of the support that they provide to help people, for which they want people to be ingratiated to them or to be grateful to them or be beholden to them, this money that they take and use from the treasury through various schemes. And I don't see anything wrong with that, because, that's what the treasury is there for, to support the needs of the people. So I don't see a problem with them doing some of that. What I see is the problem is they don't do enough, because they want to have extra money left behind for them to be able to have for their own personal agendas. Look at the budget. And as I said, the current budget will not be enough to take care of the needs of the country and the needs of the things that are being budgeted, because it's a bogus budget. They just throw numbers here and there at different categories or classifications. They don't do no true calculations to determine whether or not the numbers that they throw towards those highlighted section budgetary issues is valid, viable, or significant or solid, because that will require them doing a true cost benefit analysis. And I don't see them doing any cost benefit analysis in regards to the poverty alleviation programs. Okay? Because they would know that them small amount of money is not enough. And the Prime Minister, who is the person that has the Ministry of Finance under his wing and who controls the budget, he can afford to take extra money for himself, as he claimed that he's doing it because he has, a lot more people that comes to him for help. Increase that part of the budget and reduce or tighten up on some of the other stuff then. There are a lot of different ways that you can tighten the budget. For example, the other day when they had those expenses for the airport contracts that they were giving out, $28 million given out in contracts to cronies and friends who did not provide the correct information before the contract was given to them, and who were being paid on those contracts without or before any work was being done by them. All because the general election was coming by and they wanted to use those people's name to hustle some money in order to give kickback to the people who were involved in the election. Millions of dollars from our coffers went up north under various schemes and scams. Then the Prime Minister is going to say, well, he was not aware that these things was happening in his department. And as of today's date that I'm making this statement here, one would presume or would like to believe that him having been told about these things and having been brought to his attention, at least by now, we'd have heard of some kind of resolution to those issues. And there have been people who have, under the Freedom of Information request, have asked for bits and pieces of those information, only to be played out and shushed away. There's no intent to do what's right, and there's no intent to be accountable. It is unfortunate because we don't have a lot of money. We have assets, but we're not selling the assets to get the money that we need to run the government. And we are not collecting our taxes that is due to us in order for us to run the government. So where is the money going to come from to take care of the needs of the people? We can't keep borrowing. When the Barrow government, the previous government was in office, this current group that are in office now were complaining that Mr. Barrow was just going and borrowing. That's probably why his name was Barrow. But Mr. Barrow and his team was kicked out of office for the same reasons. Now they have these jackals come in and they look like they want to take over Mr. Barrow's name because now they're borrowing so much that they're not just doing the borrowing. They want to claim the man's name because they have borrowed what he borrowed. They borrowed more than he had borrowed. And they're still insisting in going to the house and borrowing additional funds. Just the other day, they went to the house and borrowed another $200 million. Every time they come to the house, it's all about money. Borrow here, borrow there, borrow. I don't want to believe that they're trying to usurp Mr. Barrow's name because they are the biggest borrowers now. You know how many $1 billion we owe right now? All because they keep borrowing money instead of collecting or taxes that are due to us. Or instead of giving away less to their cronies or their bodies in taxes. If they would give away half as much as they give away, we would have that other half for us to help be in a better position than we are today. If they were to give away 25% less than they are currently giving away, we would have that 25% to add to our coffers to ease the burden or to increase expenditures on some of these poverty alleviation programs and or other needed services. And they want us to be happy about what they're doing, and they refuse to do what's right. All we're asking them to do is a little better than they're currently doing. We're not asking them to create no miracles or to stop doing what they're doing. Do a little better. They don't have to become geniuses. They don't have to change the constitution as they're attempting to do. There's a lot of things that they don't have to be doing or need to do in order to give us better services. Just allocate the funds adequately, appropriately, and according to the needs. Allocate what we have or what we project to get. And go and borrow. But make the money make sense. Every year you get $1.5 billion to $2 billion. 5-year term, you get approximately close to $10 billion. 2 terms, you get $20 billion plus dollars. And no, sir, and we can't see the receipts because nobody wants to provide the Auditor General the information for her to do a proper audit. The Contractor General can find out where the documents are for the contracts. The Ombudsman can't do his job adequately because when he attempts to do so, even though the current government went to the House of Representatives and made a new law to get that same gentleman as ombudsman, even though he was past the age for service, because he dared to do his job according to the Constitution, he is no persona non grata. So he lost his job. And we still don't have a new ombudsman to put in his place. Why? Because they don't want no accountability, which is the problem. Belizeans at home and abroad, we have to stop these people from taking us for Kunomono. Because they won't stop themselves. And if we don't try to figure out what's going on and how to deal with it, and stop being divided, and stop trying to be petty with each other just because of political party names, and start dealing with the issues, especially the issues of the day. And I'm talking not about just politics itself. I'm talking about how the country is going to be able to survive currently and in the near future. Because there are things that's coming at us that we have no control over. The Prime Minister went and raised the price of the gas, saying that they raised it because of the war in the Middle East. We didn't get a new shipment of gas yet. So how the hell are they going to raise the price on the world shipment? To do that is onerous. To do that is stealing. To do that is malignant. That's illegal. That's unlawful and unconstitutional. You cannot violate people's right by dispossessing them of their funds under the guise that somebody else have a war, so therefore you're going to raise the price of your goods that you have currently on the shelf or that you have in the tank. You're entitled legally to do that if and when you get the new stock. Or maybe the idea is that they raise it now so they can get the money to buy the new higher price. I don't know if maybe that's what they're thinking, but that's also illegal. There's no two ways about it. You cannot take the existing stock and pretend that you have a right to raise that price just because you want additional money to go and buy the more expensive stuff. It doesn't work like that. That's cheating. That's stealing. That's aiding and abetting a crime. Or more to the point, that's committing a crime. Because you have monopoly in the importation and the way the gas is being dispensed. And the worst part of it is that the Prime Minister himself can't see his government reducing the price of gas, which will slow the inflation or reduce the inflation. Why? Because that will mean less money in his pocket from his gas station. As I said earlier, the man is making a salary plus other benefits and perks through the government. He also has his gas stations, as I just alluded to just now. But he don't want to lose no money from his gas station. He has cane farming, thousands of acres of lands. He has his cattle ranching. He has his cable company. He has also shares in the smart telecommunication company with Mr. Ashcroft and Mr. Ashcroft Alliances. So the man have, and then he have money that he's getting residuals from his own family and father. So the man is getting money from all over the place to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. That's the reason why he can't see how people in a 68% poverty level, has a reason to be clamoring for assistance and for help and for better governance. They are rolling in the money, and they could care less about anybody else. And they want to feel more offended when anybody talk about them in that kind of way, or point out those kind of situations. They are supposed to feel more offended than the people who are being denied the opportunity to live and survive and succeed. That have to go to their bed. They have to end up going to their bed, and their kids going to their bed without being fed or without having the money to pay or buy food or give their kids food for the following day or dress their kids properly or have the correct material that they need or have it. People are suffering out there. And these jackals are living high on the hog. There's a lot more I would like to say, but like I said earlier in the program before it started, we only have 90 minutes, 1.5 hours. I'm currently just about a couple of minutes above that. So I'd just like to wrap up for tonight. Thank you very much, Belizeans at home and abroad, and others who listen to our program while it's live. And for those who will be listening to our program at some other convenient time, probably when you get home from work or sometime over the weekend or the holiday or at some other future date. Whatever we had to say here tonight, we hope that you have derived some positive public benefit. And we hope that as we measure our words, thoughts, and ideas and what we project out there or stipulate out there, that somehow or another you will derive some positive public benefit from it as well. And it will accrue some additional benefits as well to our country and people of Belize. Again, my name is Leonard Brackett. I was your chairman and presenter for tonight. And this was the Belizean Affairs show number 421. 421. Thank you very much for having given us your time and attention. And on this special season, we just like to say we wish you the best, God's guidance and protection. We're gone.